Side of the people receiving the black tax, understanding that one, it's not an entitlement, that this person is making a sacrifice by doing it, because I do find that resentment comes on the other side of people feeling that people are not grateful. When things are good, you don't remember me, but when things are bad, that's when you remember me. That's when now you have a crisis, I have to send you this, I have to do this, you need to borrow that. But I see you posting on IG when popping bottles and stuff.
It's kind of like, oh, poor people shouldn't drink, poor people shouldn't have good things because you're poor. You're supposed to be focusing on how you're gonna get out of that poverty. When it's like you've never even been in that position, they don't even have the resources, but they're just trying to get through the day. It's like when people say, oh, I'm not gonna give this homeless person because they're gonna use it for drugs. Like, did you want them to buy shares with that 10 rand? Or did you want them to go buy a house with that 10 rand? Do you think it was going to save them? It's like you don't necessarily get that respect, or you're not included in things anymore just because you don't have that money anymore, or you're not that person anymore. So it kind of makes me question relationship.
Score to boost the family, and then you're left with that credit score when you're now paying all these debts off. And the people that got the benefit kind of forget that was some kind of an agreement between two sides. Now, that when you were enjoying the money, it was nice, but now when you are paying back, now you're coming with excuses and things like that.
Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nothembi Basson, aka the Rich Mogul. And I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Mbongeni Dhilwayo. Boom, boom, boom. How are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you for asking. So guys, welcome back to episode 10. Today we will be talking about black tax. So we're just gonna get straight into it. So let's start with what is black tax. I'll say it's when you in a better position financially. Let's say you have a job or you're making some sort of income. It's where like people depend on you for their livelihood or for money.
Okay, that's fair. It's a fair definition. For me, black tax is something that's a phenomenon globally.
Yeah.
That's the first thing to say, that generally everywhere you are in the world, there are people who are economically active, and they are kind of the hunters of the society, and they have to then feed the people who are not hunting.
Yeah.
So globally, I looked at some stats in terms of remittances, people sending money back to their home countries. Most of those countries are Asian countries at the top of the list. I think India was in the top 3. And then on the African continent, I think Nigeria is one of the highest countries in terms of sending money back to other countries. And then in the European context, it's France and Germany who send out a lot of money. And it's that black tax is you have a certain level of opportunity, and there's an obligation to share that opportunity, send something back to the people that led you to being where you are.
And the next part of the question would be, how does it impact mental health?
So I think there's a lot of financial pressure that comes with once you enter the world of work, or once you enter the world of business, or taste some level of success. One, you have to acclimatize to the situation that you're in now. So going from student to worker, there's a transition there, and then to have the added benefit or the added expectation, maybe not benefit, the added expectation of having to then structure your financial situation to not only take care of your needs, but take care of other people's needs. I think that is one, traumatic, to go from being provided for to being seen as a provider, not just for yourself, but a provider even for other people, and that level of responsibility on people's shoulders. I think that's a lot of pressure to put on the person giving the black tax.
Yes.
But what we don't then often talk about is the other side of it.
Yeah.
And there's also a mental health toll to receiving black tax, to receiving assistance from people either your age, younger than you, older than you, whatever the case is within the family. There's emotional shame that might be attached to having to depend on other people in that way, whereas you should be able to take care of yourself, particularly in this economy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would also say how weird it is being on that end of the stick where you have to like ask for money because maybe you're unemployed and you are trying, but you're gonna have to obviously ask or rely on other people to help you, like your family especially, or whoever it is who can help you in that time. But I would say that for me it just feels like I hate asking for help, especially when it comes to money, because I know that everybody's struggling with what's going on in the economy. So even if you're working, it is hard, where you, in a lot of instances, you get people who are working but they don't see the money, and it's not necessarily that they can't budget or it's their fault. It's because of what's going on in the economy. And I would say, I forgot what I was gonna say now.
Well, I think we a lot of people don't really understand South Africa's economy. So the person, if we were to line everyone up, right, all 60 million of us get lined up. There's 30 million in the bottom half, and there's 30 million in the top half.
Yeah.
And the person in the middle, we don't have an appreciation of the stats, right? So Stats SA releases this information. That average person, that average South African, earns 27,000. Now, 27,000 might sound like a lot of money, but you need to remember that that person is the one in the middle.
Yeah.
They've got 30 million on this side, 30 million on that side. And on the 30 million lower, there's another 35% who are completely unemployed. So that 30 million, 15% of it has an income.
Yeah.
And they then having to take care of the people who are in that bottom half who don't have an income at all. And that's just like, it's slightly more than a teacher's salary.
Yeah.
So the average South African is generally better off than the average teacher in South Africa. And yet we would think that a teacher is someone who's in middle class, not according to the stats.
Yeah. And I think I remember what I was going to say. I was saying that like being in the position where you have to ask for help or rely on other people, especially after you've like passed the 18 mark, we expected to get up and have something going for you and not be unemployed, even though majority of the people are unemployed because there's no jobs. Everyone is hiring, but they're not hiring at the same time. So in that position, obviously you just have to continue going forward, but you also need to ask for it. There will be a lot of instances where you have to ask for help or rely on other people to help you with that. And I think it's just, there's the thing about like being in a poverty-stricken situation or a situation where there's lack. I think with poverty for me, there's always just been the thing where I feel like my dignity is taken away, because now you have to ask for basic needs.
No, 100%. And that dignity is a lack of empathy.
Yeah.
Because the person who has the money to spare, so to speak, probably doesn't realize how much of your dignity is involved in you even having to ask for that help in the first place. So I think there's empathy that's going to be required from the side of the person giving, but also there needs to be empathy on the side of the person receiving that gratitude, because you don't know how hard or how long that person has to work to put themselves in that situation. And you also don't know what their situation is in terms of balancing out their costs, and the number of priorities that they have and the number of promises that they have to make to keep up with the life that they have. Because generally the higher you go, the more problems there are, more money, more problems.
Yeah, and your problems adjust. And also there's some people also who've just been making by with so little that they can't even comprehend. Like some people, you ask them like what do you need right now, what's your dream pay, they'll be like 20,000 a month. But then if you've actually had that and you've had access to making 20,000 a month, it's actually not that much money, especially with like tax and stuff like that. Like a lot, because you can't comprehend or you haven't had access to that, you don't even know those problems. So when you get there, the problems adjust. So what would we say is like the what type of boundaries or tips do you have for somebody who's struggling with the effects of black tax?
Okay. Well, I think if you are struggling with the effects of black tax from the side of the person having to give it in, I can give my personal experience where I grew up in a family where it was explained to me that there are generations that came before you and they went through what was difficult for them during colonization. There was oppression, racism, apartheid. All of those things were real barriers, but they managed to send the next generation to school with great sacrifice. And that generation went to school without uniform, they went to school without shoes, they would walk, there was no transport dropping off at the gate. So those people then faced different challenges. And so I grew up in that context where I was told constantly that I am the next generation. I'm the next generation that doesn't walk to school, because I didn't. I had school shoes and school uniform. And so I always knew that I have to then kind of honor the sacrifices that were made in some way. I was a child, so it wasn't like explicitly black tax necessarily, but I kind of just knew that there is going to be this expectation on the other side. And I think that helps, because then when you do participate in black tax, having that frame of mind, when you are the one giving, you need to have that humility to remember that there was suffering that led to this situation that you have, and that's why you then have to pay it forward to alleviate future suffering, alleviate future generations. So whether you're rescuing cousins and people back in the rural areas, whether you're sending money to your parents or to young siblings, it's part of the process, because that's where we come from. We struggled in previous generations, and there's a current struggle in this generation, hoping that we're able to build something that can then last for the next generation.
Yeah, that's true. I would say that, you need to just make sure that it's not to your detriment. I will never say that we shouldn't help people, because I'm definitely where I am because people help me, and there's always been that person who will constantly help me, and I think that's what keeps me going. But I think the problem comes when people start doing things where, like, now you're supporting other people but you're not even supporting yourself. You're using all of your money on somebody else and not you. Like, then what's the point? And that's where we start getting resentment and anger and bitterness. So I think it's always just like, make sure that you are okay, you've built yourself, so that you're able to help other people and you equip with the tools to help other people, because you know what you need.
No, 100%. I agree with that, because you can't pour from an empty glass. And that's where we need to do better in terms of collectively creating a situation where someone has that opportunity to stabilize their life financially before black tax comes into play, but also on the side of the people receiving the black tax, understanding that one, it's not an entitlement, that this person is making a sacrifice by doing it, because I do find that resentment comes on the other side of people feeling that people are not grateful. People have an expectation that I will always be your plan B. So whenever you're living your life, when things are good, you don't remember me, but when things are bad, that's when you remember me. That's when now you have a crisis, I have to send you this, I have to do this, you need to borrow that. But I see you posting on IG when popping bottles and stuff.
Exactly.
So that is also where some of the tension and emotional stress comes from, to say, I'm helping these people. They're supposed to be doing certain things with that money, but instead they seem to have different priorities, and that causes a lot of tension.
Yeah. I would also say, from that perspective of being the other person who benefits, I guess, from the black tax, or somebody else providing for you, because I was gonna say, because you are not choice, actually, because and then I just feel like sometimes when you are the Moreke and then when you are not the Moreke, sometimes people can go through those phases where they lose their jobs or they resign, and then it's like, now you're no longer the Moreke. It's like you don't necessarily get that respect, or you're not included in things anymore just because you don't have that money anymore, or you're not that person anymore. So it kind of it makes me question relationships. Like, is this conditional? Is my worth tied to when? It even makes me question my own relationship with myself, because when I don't have a job, all of a sudden I don't like. Oh my God, what am I doing? I failed. I feel like such a failure when I'm not doing something to contribute to capitalism. And it's like, oh, so is your worth constantly tied to something else or what you can achieve? Because it's like you are worthy now in this stage as well.
No, 100%. So for me, that's what use is a fish that can't swim. And that's the psychology of capitalism. That's the psychology of the society that we live in now, where money is kind of the first thing you think about. When you wake up, you're thinking, it's going to cost me this much to get to work. It's going to cost me to have lunch. It's going to cost me to get back home. So everything has kind of been broken down to money. You pull out your phone, there's data. You watching TV and they're throwing all these ads at you, creating needs.
Exactly.
Capitalist needs. And that all reinforces the system. So I think that's the issue around what we call this conditionality of love and this conditionality of relationships in the current space that we're in within the society.
Yeah. How does cultural expectation and obligation contribute to mental health stress?
Genuinely, I grew up knowing genuinely that there's a need to help, that there's an expectation to help, and that's how life kind of is. Those are the cycles. That there's a period of time when one generation is productive, and then when the next generation takes that baton, they're expected to be productive and cover everyone's needs. And I think that's where in South Africa we then have the particular challenge of having such very high unemployment rates for young people that they're supposed to be taking the baton on and giving back both to the people that came before them, but then also planting seeds for the generation that's going to come. And with the high levels of unemployment, inflation, cost of living crisis, not just in South Africa, but all over the world, that cultural expectation now has a capitalistic angle to it, where it's almost bastardized, because now it's a case of you have to do this, you must do this, and that then creates the negativity around helping, because it's a family. We're supposed to want to help each other. We're supposed to want to see each other get better. But the capitalistic pressure and inflation, high costs are then making people start to feel as if, one, people have an entitlement to this assistance because of the culture, but then also that there is an obligation all the time for you because of the culture. So it's kind of hitting on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. And I think it's very demotivating being alive in this economy, because take for instance me, I have like 3 years experience in customer service, great references, and I still haven't been able to get a job this year. And it's like, okay, so all that work, and what did it get me? Like, because I worked my ass off to make sure that when I apply for another job, thinking that it's going to be easier, currently in this economy it's just extremely hard. So I can't imagine what people with no experience are going through, or people who are fresh out of matric who are also struggling with being alive in this economy where everything is extremely expensive, and then we're struggling with unemployment, and then like how are people actually supposed to live? Like, how is somebody supposed to survive off 350?
Yeah.
So
no, and look, it's particularly challenging because for you to get in to the interview, for you to get, as soon as you wake up, it's going to cost you money. To go to interviews costs money, and to constantly have to ask for that money is also one of those things that when you were speaking about dignity earlier, that so I have this opportunity to start being independent and taking care of myself, but I also have this hyper focus on I am such a dependent, I have to beg, borrow and steal to be able to get into the conversation, to get into the room, to be able to show up for whether it's auditions, interviews, whatever the case is. Already that was a struggle. And if so many people are looking, that then creates this demotivation around, yo guys, my cousin is always asking me money as if he's going to all these interviews, you know what I mean? And that creates the suspicion and the division within family, because now it's like, but when you're always asking for interviews, and now it's like I'm stopping you from progressing or whatever. But
And like,
how many times can I send you on an interview? In this economy, we understand it's going to be difficult to get a job. But also there's, on the other side, a person starting to struggle and feeling the pressure of inflation. And so, and I don't know how we're going to be balancing these things out if we're not having conversations like this on a much deeper level. And I think Black people, we do need a financial education intervention. Otherwise, we will continue to be had for lunch in this economy. We will be had for lunch because money is kind of like a circle. And if you look at how the cultures that are doing well, in inverted commas, are the cultures that seem to have understood how this circle works. We as people in South Africa and in Africa generally, we have people back home, people in some rural area who have access to some piece of land. We have people in urban areas who have the education, but we haven't really found a way of bridging the gap in terms of knowledge. The knowledge of the people in who are educated and in urban centers, going back and developing that land and creating an asset for the family. I mean, there's lots of politics and stuff involved as well, but it's rather that we face that problem, deal with that problem, face the political hurdles, but that's better than continuing to participate in this black tax thing where people are leaving the rural areas, which is a brain drain on the one hand, and then all the brains are now in one urban center, sending money back to people who have the real assets of land, who have the real asset of time, because we don't understand how urban life has robbed us of not just our money, because everything we do costs money, but also it costs us in terms of time. While we're at a job, there could be other things we're doing. And so we have to find a way to bridge the gap in our families to be able to start building wealth.
Yeah. Because we don't, as Black people, we don't talk about like budgeting, financial literacy, and those type of things. So we need to like have a conversation around that, and also intersect that within our dynamics of families and being raised. And how can we work to shift like cultural narratives around Black tax and promote more sustainable support systems?
So last time we talked about grief and how there's lots of businesses that could be created out of the process in terms of providing support for people who are grieving, providing support beyond that 1 week leading up to the funeral. So if that's one solution that we have around grief, within the financial space, there needs to also be a solution around financial literacy education. Financial literacy, not even just education, but even entertainment, because Super Strikers is a cartoon for children. It makes them understand the importance of their bodies, the importance of being fit, the importance of trying, practicing. There are lessons that are being imparted through that vehicle. And so we need vehicles like that to also impart to people how to survive in this capitalist environment. So for me, one of my greatest gifts in my life is my parents both, they got me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think I was a teenager at the time. And in as much as we didn't have the conversation around it, but just by giving me the book and allowing me to ask those few questions whenever I didn't understand something, we were passing down knowledge that, to be honest, my dad would even have said that at my age I didn't know these things. So that's what creates that expectation that you need to be moving forward to another level. So providing that information to people is one of the ways that you decolonize this thing of making these concepts that seem inaccessible accessible to people at a younger age, instead of people finding out for themselves once they're employed. That's often too late. You needed to have started planning a lot earlier. And speaking of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, there's even a board game. And that board game, unlike Monopoly, which kind of supports the capitalist dream where you're just given this money, you buy these properties, someone goes broke and someone goes super rich, which is kind of driving the inequality that we see. Monopoly is literally creating inequality. But Cashflow 101, which is a game by Kiyosaki, and that game kind of teaches you how to go from having a salary on a monthly basis, how to structure your balance sheet, kind of budgeting, all of those things in a game, and then moving you onto a fast track where you've now made a certain amount of investments, and those investments are now starting to feed you instead of you constantly having to go around in what he calls the rat race. So we can create our own vehicles that are just like that to impart to children what the difficulties are of money, to impart to children that when you're watching TV, those adverts they're already stimulating your capitalist dreams. They're stimulating your need to expend money. But what are they doing in terms of the media to then also impart you with the inspiration on how to make money, other than just getting a job, because everyone kind of just wants that job.
Yeah.
Yet we need to be actually building our own industries and building our own mega huge corporations that service not just South Africa, not just Africa, but the world.
And I would also say that like the economy is bad, and we should stop like tying worth to like having a job or the way you treat people. It shouldn't be based on what they have or what job they have. We should respect everybody, like, because there's a kind of, I don't know if it's classism, but like it's kind of like, oh, poor people shouldn't drink, poor people shouldn't have good things because you're poor. You're supposed to be focusing on how you're gonna get out of that poverty, when it's like you've never even been in that position. They don't even have the resources, but they're just trying to get through the day. It's like when people say, oh, I'm not gonna give this homeless person because they're gonna use it for drugs. Like, did you want them to buy shares with that 10 rand? Or did you want them to go buy a house with that 10 rand? Did you think it was gonna save them? Like, you can't imagine what they're going through. And the fact that you already feel like you don't deserve a 10 rand because you're gonna use it for drugs is just like a level of classism. So I think we also need to, because South Africa is very poor but yet very classist. We're a very classist country. I think we need to destigmatize that and not tie someone's worth to.
No, 100%. I think, look, even if I say to you that the median salary in South Africa is 27,000, a lot of people go, yo, that's a lot of money. But that's because we don't have a money culture. Because you need to automatically know, if I'm saying 27,000, how much of that is tax? So that's gone. How much of that is rent? That's gone. Because everyone lives somewhere.
Even
exactly. Right. You've got your medical aids and all of that thing. Because 27,000 allegedly, according to the stats, is roughly the salary of like a traffic cop. 22,000 is like roughly the salary of a teacher. So if you're looking at, these are very stable jobs. But once you look at all the deductions and everything else, you can see why those are the jobs where people are still feeling that pressure of, you've got this holy grail thing of you've got a job and it's a stable job and it's a government job, and there's expectations that outweigh that 27,000. And that's because we don't know. So this person is then, because they have a safe job, are forced to go into debt. And people are making them borrow on their behalf. And that's a part of black tax that we haven't even explored completely, to say that using your balance sheet, so to speak, using your credit score to boost the family, and then you're left with that credit score when you're now paying all these debts off, and the people that got the benefit kind of forget that that was some kind of an agreement between two sides. Now, that when you were enjoying the money, it was nice, but now when we're paying back, now you're coming with excuses and things like that. And these are the real things that cause the tensions within families and cause mental health problems for a lot of people, because capitalism kind of has a way of pushing us to the edge in terms of spend as much as possible while also trying to pay you as little as possible. And those two things require us to then build ourselves, have the internal discipline to understand the system and be able to at least make sure that our children don't get caught in the traps that we were caught in.
And I think also money, the conversation around money, especially with black people, it's so stigmatized that people don't even talk about it. So like people will talk about sex, talk about everything else, religion, whatever, but money is never spoken about. Like, how much do you make? How do you live with this? How do you, like, we never have those conversations, and we need to start having more of that, especially with like communicating about certain things. Because even like some people go into debt because they're living a lifestyle, because you could have just communicated like, nah, I can't afford this, let's do that. Like, so we need to like start by destigmatizing those things, the way we speak about money, the way we speak about people who have less or who have more, or the way we treat those specific people.
Yeah, unfortunately, look, propaganda is designed in a specific way to create this impression that the life that you see on TV is real life. And especially the most vulnerable are children who see these things. They see these huge houses, and yes, this person works as a receptionist. So they have unrealistic expectations, and those unrealistic expectations is what then makes someone have to now borrow to subsidize their lifestyle, because there was a promise made, and without the understanding of how that promise actually works and looks, that's how people get themselves into situations that they don't understand. And so, yeah, and money is definitely one of the things that we need to find a way to demystify it for ourselves, because in other cultures they're able to circulate money, they're able to create intergenerational businesses where if there are 3 brothers in a black family, 3 brothers in a Chinese family, 3 brothers in an Indian family, 3 brothers in an Irish family, whatever the race, whatever it is, right? But just look at these 3 brothers and how you're able to keep together as a family. You have separate children, these children working together, creating businesses together, where one is a farmer and the other one creates a retail store, and then the other one creates a logistics company in between to transport the goods from the farm to the store. Now, who is more valuable than who in that situation? The whole family as a whole is the one that gets the value. But I think where we still compete and not find ways to unity is because we then start to think, no, but I'm the one with the shop, so I'm the one bringing in the money. Oh, no, but I'm the one doing all the hard work on the farm. And then it's like, yeah, but you in the shop would have nothing if it wasn't for me with the transport. And you in the farm, if I don't take the things to the shop, you know what I mean? So now people are being divided, yet you've built a circular system. And if you understand that money is a circle and it just needs to keep flowing, everyone is going to rise. But we are so selfish, and the media makes us selfish because they keep programming us with all these needs. We need the latest iPhone. We need the latest Samsung. Did it really innovate in the last 12 months? Let's really be honest about these questions. Don't cancel us, technology companies.
Don't cancel us. Please sponsor us, Samsung, because I need an Android. Like, iPhone needs to just stop making phones now. Anyways, what health professions, how do you think health professionals can help people who are struggling with black tax?
Well, I think to find people struggling with black tax is better. In terms of, it's not a conversation that's being had. You can't find them hanging out in a specific place. So the financial institutions are probably the best place to start. Because these are the people with the bank accounts. These are the people who are sending the e-wallets. These are the people. So it needs to not necessarily be a mental health thing that we're thinking about coming from the medical field, but I think it's a financial product or financial system that will enable that person to better manage their needs and their emotional states that come around having money. And financial advisors, for example, like what stops us creating more jobs in the financial advisor space? As soon as you open a bank account, get a financial advisor. That would lower unemployment on a massive scale and enable those people to become the high net worth individuals if they have this guiding light that they can trust within the financial system, to say to them, instead of just selling you more and more products and taking more and more of your money, but if they were to say, look, my job now that you've opened this bank account with this bank is to see your dreams come true for real, not just in the advert, but create the jobs that actually then almost having financial social workers going around and checking with people about how they are prioritizing, how are they budgeting, are they putting in the right things in place, and also making it clear to them when they are spending is not in a priority area. For example, what stops those balance sheets where you look at your statement? What stops certain things being read so that psychologically you start to see that, oh no, I'm actually not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. There's all kinds of budgeting apps that we could be developing, and maybe that's something that we can do ourselves, not expecting the banks to do it. But we can develop financial apps that track your spending and say, look, your budget says this, but why are there so many savannas being swiped? You know what I mean? So that's a system that can help people then start to think, okay, but those savannas are going to turn into...
like something that's gonna drag you and be like, oh, this month you spent 10k on savannas.
Yeah.
Like on total up.
Exactly.
Oh, this month you spent 3,000 on bourgeois. Like drag us.
Yeah, and it's every single person might have the right tone to address them, and the more you understand your consumer, the more money you make. So genuinely, there is opportunity. It's just that no one is willing to do it in a way that helps the most people, because we live in an individualistic culture where it's all about help me. I want all the profit. I want to have all the market share, instead of us creating a system that actually works, and works so well that we stop building these high walls, because there's no need for crime if we were to engage everyone into the economy more fairly.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, I think we can just close off now.
Next week we're going to be having a new staff member. So that's announcements. We've upgraded, guys. 10 episodes now. We have announcements.
Exactly.
So yeah, watch for the content to get even better. We're trying to increase the quality.
Exactly.
And see if we're gonna have any side channels.
Yes.
Because yeah, all these ideas we need to then turn them into content, turn them into something that can, something short, digestible that you guys can then learn from, share, and start your journey as well. Because mental health is it's all encompassing, and now we're touching money.
Yeah.
Previously we touched grief, and we'll just continue in that light.
And you can also suggest any topics you guys would like us to speak about or want to hear about. And yeah, thank you, Mbongeni. Thank you to everybody who's watched. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Thank you to Tungi. Thank you, Kiapo Media. And thank you to our new team member, Noah the Cloud Eater. And yeah, the book of the week is The History of a Difficult Child. But thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.
Cheers, guys.